Okay guys, let's fight with our cock. Fights generally in anime is one of the things that most anime watchers debate about or talk about, and then when someone disagree with you, they just call you pedo.
No.
It's a topic that's very popular because most mainstream slash popular shows now revolve around action, battle shonen type shit, but some people can be misconstrued about what is a good fight scene. Some people think good choreography is just hand to hand, or some think spectacle fights make you blind, like, oh my god, I can't see what's happening. There's a lot of factors that can make a fight good looking, but one aspect that's probably the most important is writing, or just the context of the fight. The best looking fights doesn't always mean it's the best. There's examples of the most impactful fight scenes that really didn't look the best ever. It's the context between the characters, what they are trying to resolve, or just the emotions that can come with the conflicts that's happening. Some fights can really highlight the character's dialogue, even if it's just a couple of punches being thrown. That's why, in my opinion, My Hero fights are better than Bleach's. Well, maybe because Thousand Year Blood War has become less and less interesting to me, but yeah. And also there's writing the fight itself. Of course, some animes have different philosophies. Maybe there's shows that went full on tight choreography stuff, or nuts to butt spectacles that makes you shake some ass. But you gotta factor in the power scaling. What can you do to make the fight more interesting and have a sense of realism? More so about how strong some characters are. You're not gonna make Takemichi versus someone look like fucking Gojo versus Sukuna. No. It's the context and presentation why some fights look so absurd. Because it can be some of the two most strongest fucking girthy men that can destroy a whole city easily. Utilizing abilities and being creative with those moves can make the fight feel less bland rather than just spamming the same 2 or 3 attacks. Now, let's get to the more production-esque side, because we don't care about story slash content, only animation matters. Storyboards are the fundamentals of a good structured slash choreographed fight scenes. Without good action boards, you're not gonna make said fight interesting. Of course, if the animation itself is not good, then what's the point? Good action needs good animation to make it come alive. There's some cases that the animation can't really keep up with the very ambitious boards. Let's take Seventh Prince. The first episode had a fight with very complex perspectives with the camera spinning. We can see here the storyboards are good with some cool looking framing, but in the final product, it's pretty rough. The 3D backgrounds isn't really composited that well with the 2D characters, and there's a lack of in-between frames in some of the swordplay stuff. It's the same thing with Windbreaker, good choreography at kissing, but the in-betweening frames are just non-existent at times. The storyboards give all the ideas from the storyboard artists for that specific episode. They draw the key moments and note down stuff so that the animator understand it more. And it's also some other things that they can do is that the adaptation of the fights, bring in new ideas and innovate with the terrain or other objects in the vicinity. Adapting a fight can be tricky since some source material can have a full chapter of just fighting, so sometimes you gotta do something new in another medium and just be creative with it. Again, good action boards can be a good foundation, but accompanying it with mediocre or even bad animation, that's not gonna cut it. There's a lot of animators that specializes in action. They have their own distinct style of animating that they use. It can be very timing dependent, fluid, and other stuff. Fluidity doesn't mean it's always gonna be better. There's a lot of other styles and techniques that makes fights interesting. Timing is important for that impact. Low count frames can be utilized because it takes less time to do, and it can be more snappy to create distinct motion, and for key animation too, to communicate to the doga artists and have them understand your animation more through the keyframes. What frame should I draw so the doga people can visualize your animation better? And as I said, some shows can stick to a philosophy. Naruto or JJK does more hand-to-hand stuff, and One Piece or I don't know, Space Dandy does more spectacle fights. There's a lot of opinions that this or this is better, but to put it simply, both can work. It's just all about execution and not doing too much of it. Of course, there's sometimes producers that strict the overall creative vision of a show because they think it might not interest casual viewers, so they might tell the directors or animators to stick to one uniform style. But if a team can just let their creative juices flow, then you can see a lot of crazy stuff. Close combat stuff can be really good if you have the necessary resources and talented animators to pull it off, because yes, in a technical level, moving a human body in different poses and angles can be harder. That's why Naruto, when the fight happens, the detail is lesser in terms of shadows and simple colors, so that it's easier to animate and don't take much time. I mean, for like spectacle fights, it's the same, but it can use other stuff like effects, different style of animating, or even getting Zabardoed. Then you get transported to Blue Lock. People seem to think that it's just colors with no thoughts, but there's a lot of care and thought put in every movement, because you are retarded. An action also needs action directors. These people are the ones supervising the action parts, so they correct a lot of the movement for fights to move them more, or they also have a say in the action storyboards, maybe tweak some parts to be better in their eyes. We saw what happened with Bleach Core 2, although Core 3 is way better now, but Core 1 had better fights or moved more than Core 2 because of Yoshihiro Kano. He corrected a lot of the scenes as the action and effects animation director, while also animating some of the highlights in that core, but when he left to be in Soul Leveling, Core 2 was Same goes with Soul Leveling. Without Kano, the action director, and Takafumi Tori as one of the main animators for the project, it wouldn't looked as good as what Soul Leveling is right now, because the output of those two really carried the action side. Or you could do something like Frieren. They wanted to extend a lot of the fights in the manga, so they had Tori Iwasawa as the action director, since Keiichiro Saito has stated that he's not confident with directing and storyboarding action. Iwasawa too corrected some fights and also storyboarded some of the standout episodes in Frieren. 3D backgrounds has been a more common thing now. It's way easier to construct a fight that plays around with the camera more, since you don't have to draw the background every single time. Or maybe because most shows now are getting rushed, so 3D elements are being used more for deadline purposes. Ufotable has mastered the art of 3D backgrounds. They have been using it for a while. I want to vomit. They got better and better with every project. That's why Ufotable's fights can be so dynamic, and at the same time it doesn't look like two different dimensions. The 2D and 3D mix together so well. You should do that, Gohans. Oh, what the fuck? People might not know how important direction is. Being a director for a series or an episode can do a lot of things. If you're the series director, you are the one responsible to set the tone of the show. You have to talk to every department about what is the vision that the director wanted. But direction can set the level of hype that the fight needed. More importantly, music, sound effects, pacing, and a lot more. Music does so much for a fight. Usually the sound director, episode director, and maybe sometime the series director themselves do the music, like putting the music in. It's mostly the episode director responsible on what music should be playing here, when to stop the music, when to make the music louder or quieter. Same things with sound effects, it can do a lot for the moments. Pacing is a big factor. It's more about good editing too. A fight that feels fast-paced shouldn't feel that fast-paced. It can reduce to holding the cuts, holding on a cut a bit too long, or everything just feels too fast about cutting to different scenes. The viewing experience can go way down. Like, imagine watching a fight and it looks and sound like this. Maybe a 6-year-old will enjoy it. The most underrated aspect that most people don't even mention is compositing, post-processing, photography, philosophy, dichotomy. It's putting all of the elements together and making it aesthetically pleasing or visually amazing. If you talk about colors alone, it's very important. We saw what Donadan can do experimenting with very bold color palettes that mix together so well, because the director is competent at good direction, good color choices, and good value control. Making some mundane scenes look very beautiful because the works of the compositing artist. You can see full like peak photography in like commercials, Fate Grand Order, openings, endings, and maybe advertising a gacha game. It's what you get if you get a talented compositing artist do on something that's not a full episode. And for action, it's a factor that does a lot for combining all these aspects that create more hype. Again, Demon Slayer is so good at using photography, not just because the fights is good, it's also elevating to another level that most studios can't really do. It's the understanding of good CGI, post-processing, although it can be a little bit too much. While I do think for Demon Slayer's case, at least the fights can be pretty meh at times in terms of just the action direction, but photography makes it into something else, and it varies with a lot of things. Nozomu Abe's animation looks the best at Ufotable because the compositing is so amazing that the effects can pop out more, and Yuji Terao is just a god at it, mixing different colors that work perfectly to add the tension of a scene. Even like Demon Slayer's effects, the first time you saw it, that shit was something different. While these effects are very reliant on the post-processing stuff, it makes the show a bit unique with the effects in that style. And as soon as you get into the Infinity Castle thing, which will be a spectacle to watch. Jujutsu Kaisen is another thing where, yes, season 1 does maybe look a bit more consistent with the fights because of Sung-woo Park's presence saving the day, but everything else was pretty bad. CG, compositing, colors, these stuff that surrounds the fights that should at least be good enough to accompany the action was below average or bad. But when season 2 started, you can see the upgrades that it had because of a better series director being Goso. While yes, the lows can be worse in season 2, but the peaks outweighs anything in season 1 just because the overall polish and cohesiveness was just way better, making visually something more refined and even can elevate it even more. There'll be people that will like either or on how a fight is structured, but most people can't really explain the underlying nature on why some fights can look good. They just point on movement. And that's that. FYI, the Jump Festa thing is gonna be soon. I still don't know how many projects they will have information coming out, but expect at least like 2 or 3 videos or even more in that week, the Jump Festa week. If you guys like this video, leave a like. If you hate it, leave a like. Comment down below what your thoughts on fights stuff. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. See you guys next time.